Thank you so much, everybody, for the wonderful response and appreciation for our efforts. Going ahead, looking at 7th October editorial. The two editorials in the Hindu newspaper. The first one, Chief Minister in a Hurry. This is about Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. The Patna High Court had nullified the act passed by Bihar legislature for prohibition. Prohibition, the term means ban on liquor. So this prohibition law had been struck down because the punishments under it were very stern. We had discussed this in news also few days back. So this has been struck down, and the Bihar Chief Minister now has again passed the same bill in the legislature without modifications, and it has appealed the verdict of the High Court into the Supreme Court as well. So the editorial here says that this should have been an opportunity for the Chief Minister to actually look into these stringent punishments under the law and modify them, reduce their severity rather than taking a defiant stand. So that is the idea. Prohibition has been a plank which many political parties have been using presently. Kerala also introduced prohibition law. Tamil Nadu also is known for that. So the problem is that when prohibition is imposed, it results first of all a huge loss to the exchequer. So of course it is a difficult decision to take economically because the taxations on these are very high. So even if the politicians are ready to take up this, still another aspect is that the entire economy goes underground. So liquor trade will take in underground. So that is more difficult to regulate. So that is another problem. Plus, prohibition is generally used to attract majorly female voters, so it has paid off well in elections. So that is the reason why it is used as an electoral plank. So that is the case. Let's see how does it go. The next editorial is about stamping down on prejudice. This is regarding the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Bill of 2014, which presently the Union Cabinet has approved, and it will be brought before the legislature. We already discussed this in news that it will abolish discrimination, have penalties for that. HIV status will remain confidential. Nobody can be compelled to disclose, and it also looks into prevention, detection of and treatment for HIV patients. So antiretroviral therapy will be made available to them. So the editorial praises this initiative, but one aspect on which it picks up a negative point is that for insurance companies, this HIV confidentiality is there, but for insurance companies, actuarial calculations will be required, which will result in more premium for these HIV patients, and they will limit their access to these insurance products. So that is one sticking point. Apart from that, everything is going fine. The HIV incidence rates have also reduced in India overall as per NACO, National AIDS Control Organization, but in some states, around 9 states, there has been a rise too. So India needs to put a check on this. So these are the two editorials. Next we look at the question bank. Question bank for 7th October 2016, we have picked up two questions. The first question about land acquisition. This was the lead article in today's paper. The recent verdict of the Supreme Court in the Singur land acquisition case paves the way for future land acquisitions by governments for public purpose. Discuss in light of the status of right to property in India and judicial verdicts. So this is the question. These are the links which we have given for articles which you can refer to for this answer. And based on the lead article, the content prepared is here. The Singur case, you know about the Singur case. On 31st August, Supreme Court gave its verdict in the Singur land acquisition case, in which the acquisition of land for Tata Motors, which was planning to establish its nano plant here in Singur in West Bengal, was struck down. This acquisition was done by former government. Before Trinamool Congress, the left front government had acquired this land. That time, Mamata Banerjee was in opposition and she protested against this land acquisition, and later when she fought elections, she's won and now she's in government. So this has been called her victory as well. So this was done under the Land Acquisition Act of 1894, which is a pre-independence act, colonial era act. Presently, this has also been succeeded by the new Land Acquisition Act, which has been passed, which again has been mired in controversies because of various ordinances coming in, the amendments to it being made. Even the second amendment bill is still under consideration with the legislature. So these are the cases. We'll look at this in detail. So the idea was that around 1,000 acres of land was acquired in Singur by the West Bengal government for Tata Motors. So the Tata Motors asked it which land it wants, and it was acquired by a government body and handed over to Tata. So now the reason they gave was land acquisition was done for public purpose. So under the former Act of 1894, if it's done for public purpose, the government can acquire the land. It does not require huge assent or consent of the owners of the land. Under the new Act, Land Acquisition Act, Right to Fair Compensation, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act, which is there, under that the compensation given is also high, and the consent required is also in some cases as high as 80% if it is for a private body. So that is there. Of course, there is section part 7 of this former Land Acquisition Act, which required government to follow the regulations under it if the acquisition is for a private party. But if it is for public purpose, then this part 7 requirements need not be followed. So this left front government then subvented this part 7 by saying that this is for public purpose, and the public purpose is the term, as it's in quotes in the question also, is being misused by governments. Public purpose, they say here, was that the private company coming in here will bring in a lot of employment along with it, lot of investment with it, which will spur the economy. So it is public purpose, sir. So that is one sticking point, that public purpose term is vaguely interpreted and misused by governments. So that was seen in this case too. The judiciary also in its judgment clearly stated it was struck down, this acquisition was struck down, compensation was called to be paid to the Singur farmers on the ground that due process was not followed. Means the law was not followed. This part 7 was subvented, which should not have been the case. They said that the cabinet had already decided that they will acquire the land and hand it over to Tata Motors. So it was pre-decided. So they should have followed the procedure. On procedural grounds, it was struck. So this is the Land Acquisition Act also. So there are two types of acquisitions, for public purpose and for commercial use. So that's what we saw, misuse of this. Now this law is no longer applicable. It has been succeeded by this Act, Right to Fair Compensation Act. As I told you, it's 80% for private party if acquisition is done, and for public-private partnership also 70% consent is required. So many have, industrial bodies have asked that this is too high consent required, which is difficult and is delaying various projects. So of course there are exceptions to this consent also. If it is for public purpose, then the consent required is less. If it's for infrastructure related purposes, so the norms are lower. So the ordinance had been implemented, brought forth. Ordinance is said to be promulgated by the present government because there were demands from the industry that many projects are getting delayed. So to fast track that process, of course, defense related projects are outside its purview, even rural infrastructure projects outside its purview. It made even housing for poor, industrial corridor projects, social infrastructure projects outside the purview of this Land Acquisition Act requirements. So consent clause, that is the clause of 70% and 80% consent required, was diluted, plus also social impact assessment, which needs to be done for the project's land acquisition, that was also diluted. So that these two provisions were diluted. So that is there. Also it's made some higher compensations mandatory for farmers. That was one positive part of for the farmers, for the landowners in the ordinance. The ordinance lapsed again. It was re-promulgated. So another land ordinance was brought in. Then the amendments to the land bill had also been proposed in the parliament, but then it was stalled in Rajya Sabha. The opposition had a majority there. So opposition, there is no clear majority with the government in Rajya Sabha. So that was possible then. So the land bill amendment was stalled there. So again, a new bill has been proposed now. So it is still pending in the parliament. Second amendment to this bill, to this Land Acquisition Act of 2013. So these are the important amendments which they are talking of, that land acquisition only for industrial corridors would be, safeguarded. Then compulsory employment to one member of affected family, farm laborers family will be given. That is also part of the amendment which is proposed. So that is there. Another part was also that the official responsible for any any sanctions which it has given, if there are any prosecutions, that official will be directly responsible. So now in the amendment to the bill, this requirement requires prior recommendation or prior permission of the government. Then only an official can be prosecuted for illegal acquisitions or so. So that is the case. About the right to property in India, the historically we know Article 19(1)(f) gave right to property to the people. Article 31 explicitly put forth right to property, and even there were restrictions on this because it was not an absolute right. And the restrictions were that land can be acquired by the government for public purpose. Again, the term public purpose in quotes can be acquired for public purpose, and they should give compensation. So that was already there, and now we know that 19(1)(f) does not exist in the constitution anymore, neither does Article 31. It is put in Article 300A as a legal right but not as a fundamental right. Right to property is no longer a fundamental right. So it was done by 44th Amendment to the Constitution in 1978. So that was also during those times, right to property was a sticking point for implementing land reforms, and land reforms were for also redistribution of land for the welfare of the poorer people. But what we see presently, this right to property is used for in favor of the rich, affecting the poor the most. So that is what this article also discusses. Even judiciary has been lenient. It has allowed various former verdicts have also allowed government to acquire land for public purpose with very minimal compensation also. So it has given the leeway to the government. Still government continues to misuse this term, and the Singur verdict is an exception now. It has gone ahead of the former verdicts and given its judgment, which will do justice to the people. That is what is expected, taking a precedent from this as a guiding light. This act will ensure that poor are not shortchanged. The next question is on NAM. Discuss the relevance of NAM in the present unipolar world. How does India benefit from NAM membership? NAM stands for Non-Aligned Movement. The 17th NAM Summit was conducted recently, last month, in Margarita in Venezuela, and the Indian delegation was led by the Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari. The Prime Minister was absent. He did not go ahead. The colleagues of the Prime Minister in the cabinet made statements that Prime Minister does not think that it is a significant grouping where he would go ahead and attend and spend so much time in a distant country, Venezuela in South America. So that was the statement made. So the NAM relevance or importance of NAM is being reduced by the present government. The article here basically discusses the relevance of NAM. And NAM non-aligned movement basically started during the Cold War period. So it was when that after the Second World War, two blocks were formed, the Soviet bloc and the US bloc. So countries were brought in each of these blocks, but there were these developing countries, newly independent countries, who did not want to enter in this, race for prominence, but they wanted to develop themselves. They wanted assistance in a peaceful world, aid from both sides, not sticking on one side, not forming military alliances. That's what was going on. So India was a major proponent of NAM, Jawaharlal Nehru, during his time, and they said we'll not align with either of the two blocks. We are non-aligned. So so non-aligned meant that you are on the right side, whoever is right. So that had been proved in various cases. During the Korean War, we saw India's stand was what was right, and it was appreciated internationally for that. During even the Vietnam War, during the Suez Canal crisis. So NAM relevance was there then. But after the Soviet fell, it was felt that now there is no more relevance of NAM because now it is a unipolar world. But even in a unipolar world, imperialism is what we see even today. So imperialism, you have to stand up against it. So against imperialism, against new forms of colonialism, all these injustices, there needs to be a voice raised. So that is what NAM is. And NAM is also an organization of many developing countries. It's a large organization, and it does not allow you to not adhere to your foreign policy now. It does not go against. You are free, you are independent. There are no binding compulsions. It was also because of NAM that a grouping of G4 was formed. G4 comprises of India, Japan, Germany, and Brazil, and they want together membership of UN Security Council. So NAM stopped acquisition of only Japan and